Welcome back to The Explainer. Let's jump right in, because today we're unpacking a mystery that is as deeply eerie as it is meticulously documented. We're cracking open the recovered texts of The Last Archive of Oakhaven. This source material lays out a chilling, almost true crime-style narrative of a mysterious apocalyptic event that they just call the Absence. But you know what makes this story so incredibly captivating? It isn't some sudden explosion or a giant meteor falling from the sky. It's the paper trail. We're looking at the slow, creeping realization of an entire city that the very ground beneath their feet was waking up, all while the people in charge desperately pretended everything was totally fine. Okay, so picture this. If you're going to write an apocalyptic record, you'd probably expect it to start with fire and brimstone, right? But the end of this world began with something almost comically mundane, a pothole on a street called Corvus Lane. Only this hole smelled like autumn leaves, totally in the wrong season, by the way, and one morning, it just swallowed a cart entirely. Just the cart, not the horse. But as we'll see, this single weird anomaly was actually the very first domino in a chain of impossible physics that would eventually rewrite reality itself.
Section 1, the first missing cart, and the bureaucratic response.
When we look at the timeline of what scholars call the precursor phenomena, the chronological escalation is just wild. We start 7 weeks out with this moving hole on Corvus Lane. Fast forward to 6 weeks, and that hole actually starts audibly breathing. At 5 weeks prior, massive signal towers all around the city just begin emitting this musical hum. And then, at 4 weeks prior, an ancient mythological entity known as the Warden literally just walks into town. It's an insanely rapid collapse, but early on, people were honestly just trying to file the proper paperwork. I mean, just look at the sheer professional disbelief of Oakhaven City Registrar Odile March. This is her actual letter to the Department of Structural Anomalies. A local guy named Harlan Millhouse lost his cart to this hole, while his horse just calmly stood there eating geraniums. But Harlan's main complaint wasn't even the lost cart. It was that the hole then moved 11 feet across the pavement. Not down, but sideways. Real, everyday people were experiencing impossible physics, and Registrar Marsh's reaction was basically just telling the Anomalies Department to come out and fix the road. Section 2. The Deepways Wake Up. Understanding the magic. To understand why holes are moving and breathing, we actually need to shift our focus to the underlying mechanics of this world, right beneath the cobblestones. The crucial thing to grasp here is that the city of Oakhaven isn't just built on regular dirt. 1,200 years ago, humanity made this massive magical contract called the Tethering. And this contract literally bound the earth, forcing rivers to flow correctly and mountains to stay put. Underneath the whole thing runs the Deepways, these vast subterranean magical channels that have their own appetites and desires. The source documents reveal that the tethering was never a permanent fix. It was a temporary suppression. And now, those ancient constraints are degrading. The magic is quite literally waking up. And the sheer scale of this awakening is absolutely undeniable. Across the entire continent, the Earth is acting with actual consciousness. On Corvus Lane, the whole breathes. Over in the Harrow Valley provinces, underground water sources start flowing in an exact, conscious 4-hour rhythm. And back in Oakhaven, the signal towers, which were originally designed as listening posts for the magic, start broadcasting a humming song. The Deepways aren't just breaking free, they're actively trying to communicate. Throughout these source documents, we also get these really fascinating annotations from two modern scholars who are trying to make sense of the past. Scholar Voss takes this very logical, institutional approach, zooming in on how the bureaucracy failed. Scholar Kren, on the other hand, views these exact same documents through a deeply emotional, almost prophetic lens, focusing on the human tragedy and the consciousness of the Earth itself. And you know what? Both of these interpretations are completely vital to grasping the full picture of the archive. It's a great reminder that history requires both hard data and deep empathy to really understand. Section 3. Institutions fail to respond. The paper trail of denial. So this brings us to the core conflict of our explainer, the terrifying gap between what people are seeing with their own eyes and what the government is actually willing to admit. It's a staggering juxtaposition. On one side, you have the official city council notices, sending out memos saying there's no credible threat, literally putting up little maintenance in progress signs next to a hole that defies gravity. On the flip side, you have the grounded reality from a local cop, Watch Officer Nella Brass. Her notes flatly state, something under Corvus Lane is breathing. The institutions are just using standard PR speak to desperately manage the optics of the apocalypse. I've got to say, I absolutely love this quote from her. I have no category for this. I am putting it in the report anyway. Her superiors literally tried to force her to recategorize her report into a standard property dispute, but she refused. Officer Brass represents the absolute heroism of the individual witness here. When the system completely lacks the vocabulary to describe reality, the bravest thing you can do is just write down exactly what you see. She's creating a true archive right in the middle of official lies. And the military response is just as wild. You have Commander Aldrich Sen, who starts demanding a briefing from the council as these anomalies pile up, only to get an empty, patronizing form letter in return. The chain of command is entirely broken. Meanwhile, out in the field, one of his 19-year-old soldiers sits by the hole and doesn't just hear it breathing, he feels its profound grief and its relief at almost breaking free. A 19-year-old kid is feeling the Earth's emotions. Realizing the civilian government has literally no plan, Commander Sen breaks the chain of command to go seek his own answers. Section 4. The archive has a plan. A conscious building. Now, if the Earth is waking up, what about the buildings? Well, as it turns out, the Oakhaven archive itself is a conscious participant in this whole drama. Look at this incredible observation from scholar Petra Wayne. She arrived to do some standard research, but very quickly found that the archive building was practically reading her mind. She calls it eager. It wasn't passive at all. It was actively orchestrating her research, pulling specific books, placing them exactly where she needed them. The building itself knew the end was coming, and it wanted the right scholar to understand why. The signs of the archive's sentience are just everywhere at this point. The head archivist, Liren Galt, starts pulling the ancient founding documents of the Tethering. Meanwhile, refugees are reporting that the building literally started glowing from the inside, like it suddenly remembered it was supposed to be lit. It's arranging text for researchers to find the truth, and incredibly, it even physically shifts its own architecture to create a brand new, sealed room to host a very specific ancient guest. Section 5. Renegotiating the world's terms. The final days. We have finally arrived at the terrifying last days before the absence. And this quote from the Order of the Weld, the magical experts who are supposed to be monitoring the deep channels, is just bone-chilling. They realized, way before anyone else did, that the Deepways weren't just randomly breaking free. They were acting with deliberate intent. As High Archivist Meredith Vane points out, you simply cannot fight a conscious Earth. They aren't asking for permission to break the 1,200-year-old contract. They're serving notice. The Order realizes that resisting the inevitable is totally futile. Their only real choice is to accept it. And that brings us to the climax of it all, the Warden. A mythological go-between and translator who hasn't been seen in over a millennium, simply walks right out of the deep places and straight into the eagerly waiting archive doors. The Warden sends a crystal-clear message to the stubbornly silent Council of Anchors. The terms are up, it is time to talk. The Council is completely forced out of their bureaucratic hiding to literally sit down at a table and negotiate the end of the world as they know it. The Council's response? I don't know. Which leaves us with this final, massive question. If the very foundations of your world, the magic, the earth, the rules of reality itself, wake up and demand to be renegotiated, what do? Do you fight the inevitable with PR spin and denial, or do you take a seat at the table and try to shape what comes next? The last archive of Oakhaven leaves us wondering exactly what terms were agreed upon that day and what they ultimately cost. Thank you so much for exploring this deeply fascinating source material with me today. Keep asking the big questions, and I'll see you in the next explainer.